Hemant, thank you very much for being on my show.
My pleasure.
So you came to the UAE and started your career with Emirates, where you were heading up various technology initiatives, and by the end you were heading up digital transformation. And after 23 years there, you decided to do something a little bit different, and you started Veggitech, and you're the co-founder and COO of Veggitech, which is an agro-tech company.
That's correct.
And I'm curious to know about your journey and learn more about it. But very quickly, we'll just cut to your video where some chefs visited your farms and were taking a look.
Hi everyone, we are here at Veggitech in Sharjah and Al Quain. So 2 farms of Veggitech having absolutely nice and fantastic vegetables which we explore today. Herbs as well, lemon thyme, lemon mint, plenty of radishes. We tried cucumber, tomatoes, so many more vegetables, but everything is locally grown over here.
Really pleased to host Ben, Stefan and Chris today at the Veggitech Farms, and true to our promise, we have shown them what sustainable farming can mean in the UAE, making sure that we get sustainable farms which create pesticide-free food for you and get it from the farm to the kitchen in less than 6 hours.
Farm to kitchen in 6 hours. How does that work?
So this is very interesting. So when we actually set up Veggitech, and we set up Veggitech, we are headquartered in South Korea. We chose UAE as our base because of the challenging conditions of soil, water and temperature, which are not conducive for conventional agriculture. We brought in technology which would address that, so we create sustainable farming 12 months a year. We are also fortunate that the infrastructure in this country is so good that we are able to bring our produce from the farm into the households or into the kitchens of our chefs or our housewives or our consumers in less than 6 hours. So that's the whole concept of bringing from the farm to the kitchen in less than 6 hours in UAE.
But is it a logistical nightmare to achieve this? I mean, how can you commit to something like that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think I get asked very often. You need to have a very robust agronomy division to be able to have a consistent growing pattern for your food crops. So that's the most important part. At Veggitech, using the agro technology which we have brought in, we are able to sort that out. So we have a very clear harvest plan, we have a clear harvest forecast, so we can commit to our consumers that when they actually want to procure goods from us, that they are available in the farms ready to be harvested.
So this is not just for chefs. This is also for
Absolutely
any consumer like myself. So I can go onto the Veggitech website.
Yeah.
I haven't done it yet. Yeah. So I can go onto the Veggitech website and buy my vegetables, and I can expect them to be delivered the same day.
Absolutely, and that is the whole idea. So one of the reasons why I was very passionate about kind of moving on and learning from my experience in Emirates and bring some of the things that I learned in Emirates into the agriculture field. A lot of the technology elements, but also some of the service excellence that you come to expect from somebody like Emirates. So that's what we try to imbibe into Veggitech as well. So when we commit that from the farm to the kitchen in less than 6 hours, you can go onto the website, you can order the vegetables, we harvest them on the same day. We also have a QR code that comes to you as the packaging, where you can look at the history of the food products, the vegetables that come through. And we have a small clip on the internet which we branded as Know Your Food. So that QR code will tell you exactly the seeding date of the plant, the harvest date when it was actually conducted, the nutrition that has gone into the plant, and the exact field from where we harvested the vegetables for you. So this is where we are kind of disrupting the industry by bringing complete food transparency to the chefs, to the households, to the children in the schools. Everybody is able to benefit from this technology in agriculture.
That's really impressive, but does it mean that it costs a bomb?
Absolutely not. So one of the things, me and my partner, and he's my school friend Ravi Shotria, he's the CEO of Veggitech. One of the things about us is that we have reached this amazing phase in life where we are not so commercially driven. We really want to create a social impact with the technology that we bring into agriculture. So our intention is to provide this food at very, very optimum cost to our consumers. So you really don't actually have to break an arm or a leg to be able to kind of afford the vegetables. These are available to you at your supermarket prices.
So this kind of thing, to achieve that level of scale and that level of logistical commitment, would require a lot of capital. So how do you go about that? Are you raising funds or are you funded or?
Yeah, so we are currently self-funded. We are debt-free as an organization. We are looking into raising capital to kind of go to the next level. So one of the things we learned, between me and Ravi, with our more than 3 decades of corporate, experience behind each one of us, is that we always need to kind of first create the pilot or create the proof that we can actually scale this technology. In UAE, we now have that with more than 40 acres of farms and 4,500 square meters of indoor vertical farms. So we've been able to kind of showcase that we can bring the technology is able to kind of scale. This is now a very attractive proposition for people who would like to invest with us. So this is the journey which we are embarking on now, where we start looking at some serious investors. Discussions are already on to kind of actually going for a pre-Series A and a Series A funding. And you'll hear more about that in the coming future.
And separately, we were talking previously about if someone wants to own their own share of the farm, yes, they can do that. So is that a separate proposition that you offer?
So again, because we want, here's the story which I would like to relate to it. So typically when you ask children, where does cucumbers come from or where do tomatoes come from, their simple answer is come from the supermarket.
Yeah.
And obviously having lived here for 25 years, I wanted to kind of change that paradigm. And we said, can we look at something which is happening in the rest of the world quite naturally, which is community farming, and can we bring that concept into UAE, where normal people like us, can actually go to their farms and they can actually harvest what they want and they can actually take it home. So this is the concept we're trying to actually bring to the region. We're hoping to launch that in Q1 of 2020, where anybody can have a piece of the farm and they can actually create a harvest plan for it. We will help them grow the vegetables. They will actually come in there. They will also kind of, be part of that growing journey with us, and they can actually get farm fresh food from their own slice of the farm.
That's amazing. So just to get an idea, if I wanted to have a little farm, just for myself, my household, how much would that cost me?
So we're kind of looking at ticket sizes of around 30,000 dirhams to 40,000 dirhams per annum, where you get a 200 square meter plot, which would be a functioning, sustainable, environmental friendly farm which has all the technology from Veggitech.
And obviously completely managed and taken care of by your farmers.
Absolutely. And you would be able to see your farm on your mobile phone. So you will always be connected to your farm. You'll see things growing in there. And because it's the infrastructure is so amazing, you can actually come to the farm in 45 minutes. If you're living in Dubai or if you're in Sharjah, you're just 20 minutes away from the farm. So it becomes very, very accessible for people to kind of come and actually have a look at their piece of the farm and see how they can contribute to the growing farm.
Now, this isn't an ordinary farm that you see, because obviously the UAE's conditions are not conducive to normal farming, which is why much is imported. So what are you doing differently here? There are
3 things that we do differently in terms of being able to create sustainable farms that can stand against the challenging conditions of UAE. So the first one, so let's take soil for example. So we do our farming completely soilless. We have grow media that is inert, that allows the plants to grow but does not interact with the plant chemistry. So that's the first part in terms of actually managing the soil part. So it straight away removes the soil element from what we are doing. The advantage of creating that grow media is you don't have to use pesticides. So the crop that comes out is pesticide free. So that's a huge advantage to the consumers.
So you don't use any types of pesticides at all?
No, absolutely not. The second part is around the temperature. So we have got technology which provides a thermal insulation to the greenhouses. So we have our own design of the greenhouses. So we have actually modified the greenhouses that typically come, from usually European standards. So they work very well for the European summers, but they really aren't able to withstand the heats.
So when we were talking about that little plot that we can lease,
yeah,
that's within a greenhouse?
Absolutely. That's within a greenhouse. Because you want people to understand sustainable farming. So that's the temperature part. So you got them thermally insulated with a re-architected Veggitech design on the greenhouse itself. And the third part, which is water, because we grow them hydroponically, we use 90 to 95% less water than what a traditional conventional farm would require. So from an environment perspective, we are a lot more environmental friendly. At the same time, we are addressing the challenges which a country like UAE would face vis-a-vis conventional agriculture.
When you say environmentally friendly, one would presume that since you're erecting these massive greenhouses in the desert and air conditioning them, the kind of fossil fuels you'd be burning to be able to do that would far exceed any of the other benefits. So, how would you respond to that kind of criticism?
That's a very good question. So while we create the greenhouses, in the desert environments, the air conditioning that we're using, and typically people associate air conditioning to air conditioners, but we don't use your typical air conditioners. So we actually create, what's called a fan pad and a fan cooling system, which allows for the greenhouses to actually cool down by the evaporative cooling of the water, which transpires there, and the water is completely recycled back. So that's what I mean by environmental friendly. The footprint, the carbon emission footprint of these thermal insulation systems is very, very minuscule, to the point where a solar panel can actually enable your greenhouses to function. So we are right now piloting independent greenhouse which is off the grid, works off solar panels, and allows for this thermal insulation to happen.
Now, what you've also told me, which is pretty amazing, is that you're working on creating, or you've already commissioned, the largest or one of the largest vertical farms in the world. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And we are very, very proud that it's happening in UAE, because I think this country really fosters innovation and it creates the environment for businesses to actually thrive in innovation. So really, hats off to the leadership of the country for that. We have created indoor vertical farms that have 4,500 square meters of grow area. These 4,500 square meters of indoor vertical farms are actually constructed on 1,200 square meters of physical space. The reason I mentioned these two dimensions is the growth output from 4,500 square meters is equivalent of 45 acres of land, traditional farming land.
What is it about being vertical that makes it more optimal?
So typically we produce in the indoor vertical farms, we produce around 90 kilograms of green leafies and herbs per annum. You can compare that to a traditional farm which gives you at max around 30 kilograms per annum. In a country like UAE, it's between 15 to 20 kilograms. So per square meter, you are actually able to kind of get 3 times the output in the indoor vertical farm. When you create a vertical tower, you typically will multiply that by 10 times. So in our indoor vertical farms, we have 10 towers, per rack on which we grow. So you are getting 900 kilograms per annum per square meter. So comparing that to a 15 to 20 kilograms of produce per annum per square meter to 900 kilograms is a huge leap. And this is where we think is the answer to some of the elements of food security for a country like UAE. I'm very, very pleased, our Minister of Food Security, Her Excellency Mariam Al-Mahri, has put green leafies as one of the 17 items that she would like to see UAE excelling in the years, and we are very proud that we are contributing to that particular vision.
I know you're a tech guy, but agriculture surely still must be very labor intensive. So can you tell me a little bit about how many farmers you currently employ, how many you will need to employ?
That's a great question. So, I tell everybody, while we can bring all the technology around agriculture, finally agriculture is about growing crops. Growing crops requires a lot of empathy. The empathy comes from the farmers, and farming is a daily job. There is no moving away from the fact that you have to scout your farms on a daily basis so that you can make sure that your plants are healthy. Definitely technology can help, and this is where all the good work which has happened in my 3 decades of being a technical geek. So we've kind of addressed some 5 layers of technology, and I'll kind of quickly rattle them for you. So the first one essentially is unified communications, where every farmer on every farm can speak to every other farmer on the touch of a button. So this really accentuates the communication across farmers.
So they have mobile phones or?
Absolutely. So they've got devices which they can actually use to kind of talk to each other at any point in time. This really helps the agronomist to be in touch with the farmer so they can actually provide instructions and receive feedback on the growth of crops. So that's one of the basic things we've kind of actually put together. Second thing which we've done is we've actually put together a whole IoT strategy, which is the Internet of Things, where we are able to manage temperature, carbon dioxide, moisture levels, and currently we're also looking at the ethylene gas emissions in the greenhouses itself. So we are able to kind of actually get this on a dashboard. So I am able to go proactively into a greenhouse where I can see the temperature potentially rising for whatever reason and trying and addressing that, rather than somebody actually having to physically go in and see what's happening in the greenhouses. So that's the second thing which we've kind of put together on the IoT side. On top of that, we are using computer vision, where we are able to have cameras inside the greenhouses which look at the plant physiology, and against a machine learning database, we are able to look for infestations in crops. So this is where a lot of research work is happening, and I'm very happy that we've got some interns again from local colleges in UAE who are working on this problem and addressing this problem. So that's the third one.
So can you tell me a little bit about the farmers? Are they going to stay there, or are they going to be, and how many will you be needing? How you'll be recruiting them and training them?
So currently we have around 140 farmers, of which you have around 15 agronomists. We have around 12 engineers, on the farm, and we have actually got around 8-member team on research and analysis.
And you're only just getting started.
So this is the first area. So we kicked off on the 5th of Jan 2019. It's literally a year, since we started. So within a year, this is what we have kind of achieved in there, and we would be growing.
You spoke about your objective not being purely commercial, but also about social impact. So can you talk a little bit about how you're handling this? Are you a traditional business, or are you a not-for-profit? And how will you be addressing this when you're kind of raising funds from investors as well?
So it's a great question, and that's why I got this pin on me. So this pin actually defines the United Nations Sustainable Developmental Goals. So there is a term that's kind of become very, very fashionable in the last few years. It's called social entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So we would like to believe that we are in that space of social entrepreneurship. While we have the technology, while we have the talent to kind of run a traditional business, we are choosing to actually run it from a social impact perspective. We have got greenhouses in schools. We are educating our children, the parents of the children, the teachers of the children, to come together to the farm to learn about farming. We are hosting visits, industry side visit tours from MBA students across the globe who are coming to UAE to learn how are we doing farming. We have got university requests from University of Leipzig, we've got University in Moscow, University in Seoul, universities in India, who are wanting to send their PhD students to come to the farm, live on the farm, and understand how are we doing hydroponics in desert conditions. We are recently established in contact with the National Institute of Rwanda, where they are developing, they're focusing on agriculture, and they're one of the teams won the Innovation Award for creating a machine that allows for ripening of bananas, optimized manually. So we are working with them and seeing if we can actually bring some of those innovation, students or innovative students into our country, so they can learn about farming or hydroponic farming, and we can kit them financially and with the materials, so they can set up hydroponic farms in their country. So this is the angle which we're kind of looking at, where we want to spread the knowledge of sustainable farming into the region, and we are very open about that. So it's not like traditional business where everything is kind of proprietary and actually is kept under wraps. We really want to open up, and we want to actually educate as many people, and we want people to be genuinely interested in agriculture.
And one would stand to argue that this will actually create good value for the business. And what's your approach to that? I mean, what's the kind of stance you would take with investors when trying to raise funds?
I think I'm also a firm believer of whatever you sow, so shall you reap it. And I think we've been very fortunate to actually attract the right kind of investors who also have a similar bent of mind around the social impact of agriculture. So they are the ones who are coming to us, and they're saying they're also inclined towards focusing on the food area, the food security area, and they want to set up their farms in. And they are the ones we are actually helping at this stage. And which is great, and this is exactly the kind of family we want to kind of grow with, as we call the Veggitech family. But of course, there will be a time where there will be investors who really may not be so inclined to in the food industry, but maybe more inclined towards a return on investment, for their money, etc. And then we have a separate unit which will kind of work with them from that perspective. But at this point in time, I'm very, very pleased that we are associating ourselves with people who are like-minded, who also want to kind of create the social impact and also have the funds to invest in, because they think this is the right direction for the industry as well.
Moving over to the produce, this is obviously organic. And I mean, we often say organic and we buy organic, but sometimes we don't know exactly what that means. So in your view, or how would you define what is organic?
So I think one of the important things to understand is there is nothing like an organic produce. It's organically grown, hydroponically grown. So the techniques and the methods that are deployed are organic or hydroponic.
Right.
or they could be aeroponic, or it could be aquaponic. So these are the different technologies
Right.
where you are able to grow the producer. Organic produce typically, or organically grown crops are typically produced in the soil. They start from a lot of the preparation of the soil to allow the natural reactions of the bacteria to create the macronutrients which the plant needs. And to do that, there are some organic substrates that are used to kind of create the growing conditions for the plant. In hydroponically grown plants, you are providing those macronutrients hygroscopically, which is dissolved in water, through the pipelines. So either through drip irrigation or through the what is called the nutrition film technology, the plants grow in that nutrition, which is nutrition and water combination. So that's the difference. The end product essentially has to cater to what is called the MRL, which is the minimum residue limit, which a crop should have in terms of the nutrition or the pesticide or the fertilizer in the crop itself. So that is what kind of governs, the efficacy of the fruit that you're consuming.
And you're not using fertilizers or pesticides.
Yeah. So we don't use that stuff. We only use nutrition in organically grown plants, because you use soil and the soil is rich with nutrition. You do tend to get some pests, and to address those pests, you use pesticides.
Presumably, one may stand to argue that you're growing all of these fruits and vegetables in the UAE, which traditionally hasn't been conducive to this. You're using a ton of technology. You're doing this through synthetic soil and maybe artificial ingredients that are not kind of natural. So it's not really organic. This is lab grown and hence not organic and not natural. So how would you kind of respond to that?
Nothing that we use is synthetic. Everything that we use is natural, and it comes from nature. So that's the first premise which I would kind of state with me. The second thing is, we are not here to kind of compete with organic. So that's the other part. So we need to understand that currently, if you go in history, before 1950, everything that was grown on planet Earth was organically grown. It's only post the 1950s where a lot of fertilizers came into being, because people found that there was a better way of flooding the plant with the macronutrients, and that's how the fertilizers actually became rampant, and that's where the usage happened. So that's where suddenly you had organically grown and stuff which was actually grown by different means, where you actually were pushing a lot of fertilizers into the grow media itself. When we talk about hydroponically grown, what we are doing is we are just ensuring the science of growing plants is taken, and you are providing alternative methods for the plant to grow. As human beings, we really cannot change the process in which a plant grows. We can only ensure that we facilitate the environments around it so that the plant grows stress-free and it actually gets the nutrition when it needs at the right time. That's what we are doing with what we do at Veggitech. So there's a realm in agriculture called precision agriculture. So we use precision agriculture where we're able to give the right amount of nutrition, the right amount of water, and the right amount of sleep and the right amount of work for the plant to kind of grow stress-free. And the second thing is called controlled environment agriculture, where we are able to create the environment in which the plant can grow stress-free. So this is what we do. So there is really nothing which is artificial in what we do. All we are doing is we are trying to create an environment in which the plant can grow stress-free.
How do you know about all this? Because you were working at Emirates, right? And you were heading up some. I'm sure that was a very intense kind of career in working in digital transformation and tech. So how do you know all of this, and what led you personally to take this leap?
So I think one of the things I learned from Emirates is that you can never stop learning it. So that's something which I carry with myself. I am a curious cat. So if I'm inquisitive about the stuff, I'll go behind it. So right now I'm reading all the BSc agriculture books. So I'm kind of nearly through all of them, but I'm slowly will get into the MSc agriculture books, etc. And also I'm very lucky that the partner with whom I'm working is my childhood friend. So Ravi Shotia. So we've had so many conversations, and his knowledge, and he keeps actually imparting that knowledge to me. So that's another way where this knowledge comes to me quite easily. And then we have our own chief agronomy officer, which is Mr. Bhaskar Rao, and he actually has more than 2.5 decades of growing, and he's also a complete encyclopedia of growing. So all these conversations actually help you to actually build your knowledge base, if you like, from zero to whatever it is currently. I wouldn't say I know a lot of stuff, but I'm in the journey of learning a lot more. So that's one part in there itself. And secondly, in terms of how did the transition happen is a very personal story, and I love to talk about that. is the first project which Ravi got, or which Veggitech got in UAE, was to build a smart farm for the Al Zaya school for children of determination. So this school is actually is under the patronage of Sheikha Jamila, who's the wife of His Highness Sheikh Sultan of Sharjah. So it's in Korfokan, and there they use farming as a therapy for the children of determination. So we built the farm, and we actually trained some of the kids to actually do the seeding itself. And we were called to the office, the principal's office, in 3 days, because one parent actually had come to the principal's office. So we were a bit worried, what happened in there. So when we reached there, the parent was so full of joy, and they said that their child didn't want to come to school here. But 3 days ago, the child actually did the seeding, and the leaves sprouted in. And the child was up at 5:45 in the morning, ready to come to school. And for me, that was one of those life's aha moments, which told me that this is exactly what I would like to do for the rest of my life. So this is one of the the personal transitions, if you like, which really pushed me to kind of take the leap and say this is where I would like to kind of go in.
That's beautiful. You've also been, when we spoke, you also were talking about how you're spearheading or pioneering a bit of an ecosystem for the agriculture industry in the UAE. So can you tell me about how you're going about doing that?
If you want to make a sustainable impact to the society, you need to ensure that you work with partners who are like-minded, or who you are able to inspire to actually join your journey. So to that effect, as I mentioned, we are looking at creating a grassroots level impact. So we have a lot of the educational institutions with whom we are partnering to try and make sure that the future leaders, our students, are equally inspired about the whole element of food security, and they can touch and feel this element in their own country, in their own premises. So that's what we are kind of focusing on. So you'll see a lot of collaboration with GEMS Modern Academy, for example. You'll see a lot of work with some of the engineering institutes like Manipal School of Manipal Academy, BITS Pilani, where we are actually looking at interns coming and working with us. Very recently, we've got the SP Jain College of Business. They are actually wanting to kind of get some interns. We've got some institutes in India. So a lot of the people in the educational space is what we're kind of partnering with. So that's one element there. The second element is around the innovation part. So we have set up our innovation bases in two of the startup hubs. So the first one is the Dubai Technology and Entrepreneur Center, which is DTech, which is in Silicon Oasis. And the second one more recently is the Sharjah Research Technology and Innovation Park, where we are kind of focusing on the environmental technologies pillar. So they've got 6 pillars. So we are focusing on the environmental technology. So that's an area which we are focusing on. So that's the innovation paradigm. The third paradigm essentially is around the areas where we think we have a vacuum at this space. So that's where, for example, I reach out to insurancemarket.ae, where in my research I found that if I need to create agriculture industry as a serious industry in UAE, I need to have some of the insurance elements in place. Yeah. So when I started digging the surface, I found that the insurance element was very, very, very nascent.
There were gaps.
There were gaps. I mean, it's still in the I guess it's in the preliminary stages. But this is where we would like to kind of work with partners like yourself and start saying, if we are serious about agriculture industry, what kind of insurance methods, variables, vehicles that we can bring in to start maturing that particular market. So that's one area which we are looking at. Similarly, there's another area where we're looking at is, for example, if we were to kind of create a food city. So that's one of my visions where, from being a net importer of vegetables, UAE becomes, in at least 1 or 2 vegetables, we become the net exporter. Yeah. I mean, that would be a dream come true for me. And that's the conversation which is happening currently with...
and I'm sure the governmental agencies will be very interested in this and would want to support this.
Absolutely. So that's where the conversation is happening on that stuff, in terms of how do you create that ecosystem where you're able to kind of bring about, you have an internet city, you have a media city. How about a food city? It would be amazing, right? I mean, the whole world would be looking at you and saying, here's a desert environment, and these guys are able to kind of, using technology, they're able to kind of create food for their community.
Do you really think that the UAE could be self-sufficient in terms of its food?
I have no doubt in my mind.
What kind of time would that take?
5 years.
In 5 years, the UAE could be self-sufficient in terms of food. I'd like to close out by asking you about Emirates, because I don't want to lose that opportunity. You worked there for 23 plus years. How was it? I know you've worked closely with Sir Tim Clark as well. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and how was that experience, and what were the key things that still resonate with you?
No, absolutely. I mean, I only have a sense of gratitude, for what I, learned at Emirates, to be honest. Yeah. I was also very lucky to have contributed to some parts of the success of the Emirates. A glorious organization. I would say, I still struggle to find a parallel organization to what
Yeah.
Emirates, is. When I joined in '95, people said, "Where are you going? Where is Dubai?" To, when I left Emirates, everybody was wanting to come to Dubai and actually enjoy Dubai. So that transition is something I've been very fortunate to have witnessed through the eyes of a company like Emirates. Speaking of the visionaries, right from His Highness Sheikh Ahmed, to Sir Tim Clark, to Gary Chapman, absolute visionaries, and even some of the executive vice presidents who I've had the good fortune of working with, they really, really, live, eat, breathe Emirates, and the future of the airline is so linked with the future of the country. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's an absolute case study by itself. And I always tell people that if you want to touch and feel inspiration in a country like UAE, you don't have to go far. You just need to kind of go into Emirates Group headquarters, and you can actually see inspiration buzzing, innovation buzzing, dedication and commitment at all levels. You are able to kind of witness that. And anytime you depart from Dubai airports, you will actually get a sense of that feeling that this is something which everybody is so proud of.
Yeah.
In the country and in the world itself.
But heading digital transformation, now that we're on the kind of tipping point, if you like, and there's so many more things that can come and happen, weren't you feeling like maybe this is not the right time to leave, and maybe I can have more to give?
Oh, absolutely. So personally, it was one of the hardest decisions. As a human being, I can actually tell you, this was 9 months of sleepless nights, and of making sure that what I'm doing is the right thing for the organization, the right thing for myself, right thing for because I've been here 25 years, I do feel like a son of the country. So for me, this was very, very important that the next step that I was doing was actually in line with what the future of the country was as well. So that's what it was. But I think I'm also, I would say in some ways, a good professional. So when I actually left, Emirates, I had made sure that there was a very strong sense of leaders, who would take over what I was doing in there. So that's the kind of people I had been grooming over the years. So I was quite happy to kind of pass it on to the talent that was groomed in the organization. So hopefully, the organization would not have actually felt, a huge impact of me kind of leaving at the stage where we were at. Stage.
And clearly, there's so much more you can do, and there's so much that you can contribute through Veggitech, which sounds absolutely brilliant. And congratulations, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for being on my show today, Hemant.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah.